Most clothing brands fail, not because the owner is lazy, but because they spend a lot of time doing the wrong things. I know because I did exactly that. Over the last 3 years, I've wasted money, rushed drops, chased trends, got scammed a couple times. I've literally lost over like $20,000 getting scammed, and I pretty much learned everything the hard way. But I've also built a real brand, and I've shipped thousands of orders, and I've seen what actually moves the needle versus what just feels productive. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the most important lessons that I've learned in the 3 years that I've been running my brand. These are the things that I wish I knew when I first started. The first thing is getting into this just for the money. There are a lot of business models out there, and if you're choosing a clothing brand just because you want to make money, then I feel like there's easier things out there. Like you can become a TikTok shop affiliate, or I don't know. It's so many easier business models out there. This was so easy for me initially because I actually had a passion for, fashion and streetwear. Like I loved painting on jeans when I was growing up. And, I would always ask my parents to get me this exotic coat for Christmas, or, these shoes, little things like that. Like I was one of those kids in high school who actually, I cared how I dressed to school. Like I would actually put thought behind that, So it was kind of fun. It was like play when I first started. Because the margins in the clothing brand game, to be honest, they're not the best compared to other business models. Like you might do 30 or 40% when you first start. And then as you grow, the margins kind of get smaller and smaller because you start running ads, you start sending out products to influencers. So, you might see like 15 or 20% margins. Whereas, if you start a marketing agency, your margins are closer to 70, 80, maybe even 90% starting out. I actually had a buddy about a year ago. He told me he wanted to get started with his clothing brand. And this guy was a college football athlete. So, I helped him out and everything. He was just rushing through his drops. He's rushing through the designs. He went on TikTok, looked at what somebody else was doing, copied their design, and then tried to drop it like within the next 2 weeks. He kind of got mad at me because he was like, bro, I didn't get any sales. And I'm thinking, dude, this is not like a get rich quick type of thing. And I know everybody says that, but like really, it's not like that. You actually have to kind of love, or at least be interested in what you're doing when it comes to the clothing brand. There are a few businesses out there where you can just do it for the money. I truly believe that, but with clothing brands, it's not one of them, or else it's gonna show through your work. And people aren't really gonna respect the brand for a brand. It's gonna be more of a commodity. So you gotta ask yourself, like, am I getting into this because I actually like it? And money would be nice to make with this, but I actually like making clothes and wearing clothes? Or do I just want to make money? Do I want to treat this as a side hustle? Or do I just want to be rich? And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but I would suggest just picking a different business model. So yeah, the next thing, I would definitely spend more time, especially at the beginning, working on the design and really studying the market and what people want, and not necessarily what I want to sell. Because a lot of people that I see starting their brands, they want to sell something that they're interested in wearing. And that's cute and all, but it's best to look at what the market already is buying and not necessarily copy them, like copy the designs bar for bar or anything, but just take it and add your own twist to it. That way, when you first start out, you're already entering a market that's proven to work. And then as you start to scale, then you can, really start from scratch and kind of make your own audience. Because now you have attention, you have a big audience. So, people are going to look to you for the trends or for what's cool. You got to start by stealing in a way, right? And adding your own twist to it. So I think for me, I actually took like a month to start designing my brand to the point where I was actually, ordering a sample. I think that's a good time frame, about a month before, you actually pick your design and be like, yeah, this is what I want to do for sure. After you studied and, play with some designs and all of that, then that's when you get the sample. But definitely don't rush it. If you're starting a brand, don't release a piece within like 5 days. Like it doesn't make any sense. And you're almost asking for failure. If I could undo one habit from my early days, it would be to stop rushing the drops. Because like, let's say it was a time where it was Black Friday, right? About 2 weeks before Black Friday, this was the first year I had started my brand. So I'm still new to this. And I hear everybody's talking about how, Black Friday is going to be this big day for e-commerce. And we can use Christmas as an example since it's coming up. Really, you need to be preparing for those holidays like 2 months in advance. If you're starting your brand like a few weeks before the holidays, then you can still go ahead and continue, but don't try to rush it just for the sake of dropping on that day, because you might leave out different designs that are not as good, or you might undersell yourself on the price, or you don't have enough time to build up the hype or an audience to be able to sell through those products that you're ordering. Definitely don't let anything on the outside rush what's going on in here. You can either release 10 decent drops, or you can release like 3 or 4 unforgettable ones. Those will make you way more money and last way longer than those drops that everybody forgets about. And that's kind of the consequence of rushing through a drop. If you're serious about increasing your brand's revenue, listen closely for a second, because this could help you out a lot. One of the biggest reasons my brand is able to grow consistently is because of a platform called OmniSend. It's a powerful tool for email and SMS marketing. OmniSend gives you the automations that actually drive sales, from welcome flows to cart abandonments, browse abandonments, literally all the stuff that brings customers back. I actually did some research and found out that brands using OmniSend see a $68 return on investment for every $1 that they spend, and that's on average. And if you're on Shopify like me, OmniSend integrates with Shopify easily. It integrates your storage data, your customers, your campaigns, and their team actually handles the migration for free. That way you don't lose any time or data. It's powerful without being overwhelming. It's the kind of platform that pros like myself trust, and even beginners can grow with. So if you want to upgrade your marketing and start turning more of your traffic into actual revenue, click the link in the description or just scan the QR code, and you can use the code DETOX30 for 30% off your first 3 months. And then you can thank me for hooking you up with a great deal. Another lesson that I wish I knew when I first started is that your mindset will decide everything. And this goes for clothing brands, but really any part of life. If your mindset is weak, then the business model doesn't really matter. You're not going to make it. If you are ready to quit at the first obstacle, or even the 10th obstacle, then it's just not going to work. There's going to be failures. It's going to be hard. You're not going to get your way, especially when you first start out. If you're getting into a clothing brand just because you've seen some guy on Instagram who's making 100K a month doing it, and you're thinking, okay, if I start now, next month I'll be at least halfway there. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Some people get lucky, but most people have to grind and put in work and actually learn the ins and outs of the game. So if you know that you have to fail a whole lot before you succeed, then you might as well embrace the failure as you go through it, instead of running from it or getting swayed by it. What I would suggest doing is just focus on what you can control. Just focus on the inputs instead of the outputs. If you need this to work, like if you're doing this because you need to pay rent next month, then I don't recommend you get into this, because it's tough when you have to make something work. I know a lot of people say you should put yourself in a position where you have to make things work, but when it comes to a business like this, where it kind of takes a little bit of time and creativity, if you're in a scarcity mindset, then it'll be hard to be creative when you're first starting out. And it kind of limits you and handcuffs you into a certain way of thinking. And that's where you start to see people copying, selling really cheap products, poor quality merchandise, like things like that. It all stems from a scarcity mindset. And speaking of cheap, this is probably like the number one thing I wish I would have did differently when I first started. And that's, stop trying to get things for so cheap. Like, stop trying to find the cheapest manufacturer and the cheapest shipping. Just stop being cheap, because it's not a good way to think. If you're trying to get the cheapest manufacturers, then that means your products are going to be cheap. Your customers are going to be cheap, because they're going to be attracted to you because your prices are so low. So that's where you become more of a commodity than an actual brand. I used to be so upset because like my customers, I would sell like $40 hoodies when I first started, and then when I raised it to like 60, like I had no customers at one point. And the only person to blame was myself, because one, I had built up that audience to attract cheap customers, and then two, the customers that I did have weren't going to value that same hoodie for $60, because when they feel it, they feel the material, or they see it on the screen, they can tell like this isn't even good quality. Like, why would I pay $60 for a hoodie that looks like it was made for $5? So it does make a big difference. I would get a good quality manufacturer, even if you have to pay a bit more. Like now, the manufacturers that I have, I pay a bit more for them, but the quality is insane. Like, I love wearing my clothes. I wear them around the house like all day, every day, and then I can wear them out to eat or, you know, wherever. But they're so comfy, and they're thick, heavy, perfect for winter. When you wash them, they don't fade or shrink, anything like that. So a good manufacturer is definitely worth investing in, and I've got a few videos on that, so you can go check them out. I also sell my manufacturers list. I'll leave a link down in the description below, so you guys don't have to go through the trouble of, you know, finding manufacturers, getting scammed, getting cheap manufacturers, all of those things, because that's a headache within itself. The next lesson that I wish I would have known is you have to niche down or you're not gonna make it. If you try to appeal to everyone, then you won't attract anyone. I think there's a specific quote that goes, it's a question actually. Would you rather be liked by everyone or loved by a few and hated by, you know, the rest? Something like that. But, you know, it made me think, I would rather be loved by a certain group of people, because those people who love you, they're gonna buy anything you drop. They're gonna support you all the way to the end. If people just like you, then it's gonna be like, okay, yeah, that's okay, but, you know, when you try different things, they're not gonna support you. They're not really die-hard fans like those who love you would be. With haters, if you're doing something right, then you're gonna have haters, right? That's kind of like the indicator that you're doing good, is that you have haters. If people aren't hating on you, then that means they don't care for you. They're indifferent towards you. That's the worst place to be, in my opinion. So yeah, I would pick a niche. I would, you know, use ChatGPT for your advantage to draw up your ICP, which means ideal client or customer profile. So for me, my ICP is, let's say he's a young 20-year-old male who he's in the streetwear, but, you know, he wants to wear clothes that actually hold substance and have a meaning behind it and kind of represent, you know, his transformation as a man. My clothing brand name is Born Again. So, you know, I'm wanting to reach people who they have a vision for themselves and they're kind of changing into a new person. They got bigger dreams, bigger goals, you know, things of that nature. I've seen brands who they sell to like skaters, or they target people who like rap, hip hop, you know, things like that. And there are so many different niches that you can get into. But the thing is, when you first start, you have to pick one and act like you're selling to just one person, right? And then as you get bigger, you can kind of get broader and try different products. But when you try to sell to everybody, like you got kid sizes all the way up to 5X, then it's like, okay, you got all this product, but you're not really mastering one niche. It's like you're like a jack of all trades, right? It allows you to master the marketing for that niche, the products for that niche, the sizing, you know, the messaging, the targeting, literally all of the above. Yeah, it allows you to grab attention so much easier when you pick one niche. The last thing I'll leave you guys with on this video, which I'll make a part 2 if you guys comment. If you want me to make it, just comment and say, just make a part 2, because there's still a lot of game that I kind of left out. But the last thing I would say is, whatever your goal is, let's say I wanted to make $10,000 a month with my clothing brand, right? I would take that goal and, you know, work backwards from it. So every action that I take, I would be like, okay, what do I need to do? Or what would the version of me that's making $10,000 a month, what would he do in this situation? Would he try to figure out everything on his own, or would he seek out mentorship, seek out YouTube videos like this one, learn from people who've already done it? Another example would be, would he hire manufacturers to make the clothes for him? Because, you know, it's a better use of his time for somebody else to do that who's way better than him and can do it faster. Or would he try to make all the clothes himself, you know, maybe get a local print shop or get his own machine? You know, that's a low leverage task. And, you know, if you're wanting to make $10,000 a month, then that's not going to get you there. And I think that's probably the second most important thing. So yeah, that's the last thing I'll leave you guys with. I think these are some good things to consider. And if you want me to go deeper on these topics, or, you know, make a part 2, like I said, just comment, because there is so much that I did leave out. And that's just because with this video, I just wanted to come on here and give y'all some quick game. But I'll definitely post more if you guys are interested. So just let me know. Other than that, if you guys are interested in making your own Shopify store, you can get it for $1 for the first 3 months. I'll leave my link in the description. And yeah, don't forget to sign up for OmniSend. I'll see you guys next time.